Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner, and today I'm privileged to have as my guest the one and only BrianBolland, one of the all-time greatest artists of comics, not just in the UK, but in the world, and an old friend of Forbidden Planet to boot. How are you today, mate?
I'm very well, thank you, Andrew.
It's good to see you again. Thanks for joining me again.
It's a pleasure.
So what we're here to talk about are a couple of very cool things, one of which is something that we have just done. So Brian has a long history of creating exclusive covers for us at Forbidden Planet, exclusive DC Comics covers. And we just put out a new one, which is very close to my heart. And that is a variant cover for Batman the Detective, the new ongoing book by Tom Taylor and by Andy Kubert, which is set in Europe. And Brian has produced an exclusive variant for us, which is Batman in Liverpool, just outside the famous Liver building. Now, Brian, I know, because we set this up off camera, that you've got one just on your desk. Could you hold it up for me, mate? There we go. You've done a really beautiful job there. It's lovely.
That's just one version. I think the other two versions don't have the other two versions don't have the logo at the top. And they also have different times on the clock, don't they?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. No logo. And the other thing is that the Liver building is famously one of three very highly historic skyline buildings on the Liverpool skyline called the Three Graces. And we've got a wanted poster on those three cover variants, which are for the three non-Graces. And one of them is Catwoman, one of them is Harley Quinn, and one of them is the Joker's new girlfriend, Punchline. And that's what's on each of the cover variants.
That's right, yes. I did a cover recently that had Punchline on. Originally, I drew the Joker with Harley Quinn. And they said, well, could you replace her with Punchline, who I'd never heard of? And they sent me the reference. And so now I know who that is.
Yeah. I know that's and the cover for Batman the Detective, that came out of, as these things often do, conversations between yourself and Forbidden Planet's head comics buyer, who's a great bloke that is friends of both of ours, called Rob Pontefract. And could you explain, Brian, from your point of view, how that cover came about?
Well, I suppose it came about because I was asked to do a variant cover, and I was told that Batman was in Britain, so I assumed he was in London. You know, you tend to have, in order to establish what country you're in, you tend to have something like, in the case of Britain, you have Big Ben in the background. But no, it turns out he's in Liverpool, and I didn't have. I'd recently been to Liverpool, and I had a few reference photographs of the Liver building to hand, but none of them were quite suitable for this cover. I had to find reference online somewhere as to what the, and if you look at it, the perspective, I'm sure, isn't really quite right.
Well, I've looked at it pretty closely, and I'm from Liverpool, and it looks pretty beautiful to me, to be honest.
Good. Well, that's good.
And that really gets into, there was an interesting parallel track about the development of the cover, because I remember hearing from Rob that you were thinking of doing something that was London centric, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the ideas that you had initially was that Batman would be in that pose kind of outside the Albert Memorial. Yeah. Well,
that was, you know, if I can trace a photograph, I will do it, you know. And I did happen to have some rather good reference that I'd taken photographs of, you know, so that it wasn't Big Ben again. I thought something like the Albert Memorial would be great, and I could knock that one off fairly quickly. But it turned out he preferred it to be in Liverpool.
And the reason for us coming up with Liverpool is because, as a result, I'm from Merseyside myself. Rob is married to a Scouser. And one of the things that happened when they were filming the Matt Reeves Batman movie starring Robert Pattinson, which doesn't come out till next year in the UK, they'd been filming in Liverpool, and they'd filmed all these scenes of Batman actually at the top of the Liver building.
I did not know that, you know. So when I was looking for the reference, I was very surprised to see a little figure of Batman up there. I didn't know that. So what is this film we're talking about?
Okay, so there's a new Batman movie which completely completely recast Batman and all the other characters. It's being written and directed by Matt Reeves, who made all the recent Planet of the Apes films. He's a great filmmaker, and he's doing Batman with Robert Pattinson playing Bruce Wayne. And then let me see who else is in it. I tell you who else is in it. It's got Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. And it's got Colin Farrell, heavily made up not to look like himself, as the Penguin. And,
you're kidding.
It's a really great cast. And actually, Brian, when we're done, I will send you the trailer, because it looks fantastic. It looks great. I'm a huge Batman fan, like yourself, no doubt, but I've got a bit of Batman movie fatigue, because I love the Nolan movies, but there's just been so much Batman on screen, But this version does look very exciting. It looks great. And as a result of them doing that filming at the Liver building, the day those pictures came out in the local press up in Liverpool, because of our respective connections, Rob and I both saw it, and we were kind of fanboying out, going, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" Because Liverpool's full of Gothic buildings, which you'll know if you visited and taken a few pics. And growing up there, I was always like, man, it's all very Batman-esque. The cathedral is very Batman-esque, the Anglican cathedral. So when we saw that, that's where Rob got the idea to relocate your concept to the Liver building and ask you if that would be okay. That's how it came about.
That's great. I didn't really know that there was a Forbidden Planet in Liverpool. I mean, I've only ever been there once. It was on my bucket list to get to Liverpool, and we went down the docks, which are fantastic. But I went down. Oh God, what's the name of the cavern?
The cavern, phenomenal, brilliant.
Although there seem to be a number of caverns, you go along that street, and there's a number of places all claiming to be the cavern. But I've not been to the Forbidden Planet itself.
So the Forbidden Planet Liverpool, for everybody who's watching and who's interested, is at 92 Bold Street, and it's next door to a famous Scouse restaurant called Maggie May's. Now, Scouse, to anybody who's unfamiliar, and it's where the term Scouser comes from, is a famous meat and potato Liverpool stew, basic staple food of Liverpool. That's why Liverpudlians are called Scousers. Yeah.
Oh, so the stew is called what?
It's called Scouse. Scouse.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah, so Scousers are called Scousers because Liverpudlians eat Scouse.
Scouse, I see. I look forward to eating some.
Oh, it's delicious. My grandmother, May Sumner, made delicious Scouse, and my mum, Doreen Sumner, makes delicious Scouse. So if you're ever around at my mum and dad's place, I'll make sure she makes them for you.
I shall go around in me.
No, it's delicious, and it actually comes from, because the interesting thing about the Northwest, it's one of the parts of the UK that was originally settled by the Vikings, and the word Scouse comes from the term lobscouse, which was a Viking word. So that's the history of it all. Yeah. So
well, thank you for that.
Yeah. So should you go back to Liverpool, if you visit Forbidden Planet Liverpool at 92 Bold Street, you can buy your comics, and then you can go and read them while eating a bowl of Scouse at Maggie May's.
I shall do it.
Get it done. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, actually, the other really interesting thing about this cover, it's kind of a reworking and update of a much earlier Batman cover you did, if I recall, for Batman 445, which I've got, which I own, takes place in Moscow.
Now, back in 1986, myself and Joe and Hilary Staten, Joe Staten, who's currently drawing Dick Tracy, went to Russia for a week or so, and I took loads of photographs, and it just so happened that very soon after that I was required to do some covers on Batman. Those are the numbers you just mentioned, with St. Basil's Cathedral in the background, which is very handy. And I don't know who suggested also recreating that cover, but it was a self-homage to that cover from back in the 80s.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a beautiful cover to begin with, and it's beautiful.
Well, thanks very much.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, we only have so many ideas, and after a while you start having to repeat them, I'm afraid, don't you?
Was your process different for those two covers? Were you still back when you did the first one? were you still producing traditional artwork then?
Oh yes, yeah. I was a traditional comic book artist in those days. Working on paper with I always used a brush and ink, but that was just line art, and the color would have been added by Tatiana Wood or one of the colorists they had at DC at the time. From the late 90s onwards, I went digital. I've been working in Photoshop ever since. And the new one that we're talking about now was done that way.
Yeah, okay.
All in full color.
Yeah, well, I've got to tell you, mate, everybody loves it. And I was on Radio Merseyside at the weekend because we've just reopened Forbidden Planet Liverpool at 92 Bold Street next to Mayonnaise. And yes. I was talking to the weekend DJ, Sean Stiles.
I began listening to that interview just before we came to do this, and unfortunately somebody came to see me, so I had to cut it off in the middle before it got to the important bits. I'm assuming.
Oh, of course. But, well, I'm sure that Sean will get a kick out you listening to the rest of it because he's a big fan of yours.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, and
well, I remember the thing he did mention. I got as far as this, that he said he was a Silver Age comic fan and Gold Key, Dell comic fan, and I started with all of those wonderful. And I had a great collection of Silver Age comics, Dell and DC, and so on. So I look forward to hearing
that. Yeah, it makes three of us, and it's a men of a certain age thing, I guess. And he was very
knowledgeable.
He also knew a lot about the Batman 60s TV show, which we chatted about at the end of the interview. And there's quite a bit of, I won't spoil it for you, there's quite a bit of local Liverpool-related Batman lore in there as well, because there's some interesting connections to Batman for the city, which I go through. Yeah. So you've got that to look forward to, Brian. And
absolutely, yeah.
I thought that while we were here chatting about this, it would be very interesting to just talk about the genesis of two of your other recent Forbidden Planet exclusive covers. The first of which is the exclusive cover that you produced for Forbidden Planet for Detective Comics 1000.
Do you want me to hold that up?
I would love you to, mate.
I'm assuming you can put that on the screen somehow by some magic, can't you?
Ali will magically put it on the screen as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, so
that's the black and white version. There's also the one in color, isn't there?
Yeah. I like the color one, but I love this one.
I do.
Yeah, do you prefer the black and white?
It's so unlike a DC comic cover, isn't it? It's just, I think it's quite striking when you do something quite different like that.
Yeah. I believe that our friends at DC took a little bit of arm twisting to go as full Forbidden Planet artwork as they went, but they went for it in the end, and we were also pleased with. I mean, it's an amazing cover, mate, but we're also pleased with how it looks, because it is, of course, a riff on your classic advert for Forbidden Planet.
Original Forbidden Planet advert from 1978. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Which sports our famous not logo but catchphrase, which you invented, I believe, which is "People like us shop at."
Yeah, I'm sure that was taken from somewhere. I'm sure there was a previous usage of the expression, and I don't really remember who came up with that. I'm sure it wasn't me. I'm not really a word guy.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, which is our owners, Vivian Chung and Nick Landau. They definitely think that it came from you. So I would print the legend, mate.
It came from me.
Yeah, of course. But it's as you'll see on the close-ups we're running across the screen right now. It's a beautiful piece of work, and ideally you need to have a classic Forbidden Planet bag with this new Detective and the 1000 cover, and put your Detective 1000 in the classic bag.
I think that would be a very good idea. And I think T-shirts as well, surely.
Yes, absolutely right.
Yeah, hoodies, all kinds of things.
Which actually, we certainly do have T-shirts of the classic advert, that is for sure.
Yeah,
so I'm sure I will include all of those things and the links attached to this video. And then the other thing is something else that you did that was very interesting recently, is we did the American, another of the great American popular writers of the moment, Tom King, is currently doing a Rorschach series for DC, based on the character, of course, created by your old mate Dave Gibbons, who we were chatting to during the summer. And And that cover, you did an exclusive for issue number 1 for us, which is also available for order at the links attached to this interview.
Shall I hold that one up as well?
There we go. And that essentially is Rorschach himself recalling your cover to the
Well,
Killing Joke.
yes. As I say, we only have so many ideas, and it is another riff on the Killing Joke cover, isn't it? Both written by Alan Moore, of course.
Of course. And so how did that one come about? How did that one come about, Brian?
Oh God, I'm hard pressed to remember who would have commissioned that. You see, the thing is, I'm commissioned by the people at DC, and they tell me what they want, and I'm often not really aware that it's a special edition for a special location, like your shop, for instance. I'm afraid it was one of a number of things I was doing at the time, and I really can't remember what they told me.
If I had to guess, right?
Yeah.
I would say that the way that came about, almost certainly, would be Rob Pontefract, the head buyer at Forbidden Planet, who I've just mentioned,
Yes. Yeah.
speaking probably to somebody like Vince Laterrio or Adam Phillips or Stu Schreck over at DC Comics, and coming up with the idea, and then them passing it on to the art department, who probably would have commissioned you. I suspect that's what's happened.
Yeah, yeah.
And if any of those guys, if Adam, Vince, or Stu are watching, perhaps they could just let us know, because I'm fairly certain that's what happened.
Okay, good.
And Brian, what are you working on at the moment, mate?
Yes, what am I working on? I'm between things. Whenever I get an interview like this, it's probably very good timing, because my only answer is I'm between work at the moment. I did a Superman cover recently. There's a lot of covers. I've just done a Swamp Thing cover, which I can't show you because it hasn't been solicited yet.
Yeah. How about the Superman? Has the Superman been solicited?
Yes, that one is available. I'll show you that. There have been some amusing comments about this.
Oh yeah, I saw this. This is a great cover.
It's a bit of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
There are some other things. I did a horror cover for another. It's not been published yet, but I was told I could show it. I don't know whether you can see that. But it's
that's really lovely. What's that for, Brian?
Well, it's for Joe Pruitt, who has a publishing. Can you remember the name of Joe Pruitt's publishing company?
I can't remember the name of it.
No, but I think it's for a horror anthology he's coming up with. But apart from that, at the moment, what I'm doing is, back when I was drawing Animal Man quite a while ago, I would often come up with several ideas for a cover, some of which I preferred to the one they chose. And I did an Animal Man cover recently, just because it was an idea that I had that didn't ever see, didn't ever arrive on the front of a comic. So and it had the Inferior 5. I've got it stuck to the wall.
I love the Inferior 5. Yeah.
But I'm currently doing another one of those that had Metamorpho and the elongated man on the cover, battling a dinosaur. So that's something that'll just go on Facebook or somewhere online somewhere. That's what I'm doing at the moment.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I very much look forward to seeing that. And Brian, thanks so much for taking the time to talk me through all of those excellent covers, whether it's Batman the Detective issue 1, it's Detective Comics 1000, or it was Rorschach #1, all available. All those exclusives are available from the links attached to this interview. So thanks for spending the time with me today, mate. It's always lovely to chat with you.
It's great to spend time with you too, Andrew.
Take care, Brian. I'll see you very soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye. If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.